Hello, thanks for watching. Andy here, and I want to talk today mostly about Lammas. I mean, the astrology is out there and it's happening, but it all works in the same way, and because it's Lammas, the astrology to me has a slightly different slant on it. This is Wednesday, the 1st of August 2018, and the 1st of August is the day when Lammas is celebrated in the Northern Hemisphere. It's February the 1st in the Southern Hemisphere. The actual words and the actual names associated with this ancient feast go back a long way, right into Greek mythology, and it has to do with the god Adonis and his two wives, and he would spend half the year with one wife and half the year with the other wife, and this gave rise to the idea that crops will grow for the one half of the year, and for the other half of the year, when Adonis is living in the underworld, there wouldn't be the crops. And the main crops is grain. It's really to celebrate the grain harvest. And in the Northern Hemisphere, if you look about you, you will almost certainly see that the farmers, anywhere, if you're lucky enough to live near farms, as I am, the farmers around you have probably been getting the grain in, or are just getting ready to gather the grain in for the year. Depending on the time in the cycle. In this modern world, things have changed. I mean, there used to just be the one cut every year and everything depended on it. Most farming operations now take 2 or 3 cuts a year. It's actually growing in the field behind me at the moment, and they'll have another go in September. And it affects us all really, because it has to do with the tree of life, which is on this picture that I've put behind me on the green screen, and it's kind of squashed itself a bit because it was a circle. The internet and green screens generally don't seem to like round circles, which on a spiritual footing really makes me wonder, because the circle is the most powerful spiritual thing. But there we are, it is all the tree of life, and it does sometimes make us think, hang on, is this going right? Is this not going right? Because even the least spiritually minded psychologist or psychiatrist will tell you that the human life that we all live, for every individual one of us, needs to add up into some kind of story to make sense. This can be a big problem in terms of depression, when the story doesn't seem to be making sense to the person. So there is always a flow to it. This is why, good times, bad times, people are always wondering, if the universe is so helpful, if God is so wonderful, why do bad things happen? Or why do sad little things, smaller things happen on such a small scale sometimes that they only really affect us? How can that be? Well, quite simply because, there is a grain harvest of another kind, a metaphorical grain harvest, which will come when we get to the end of our lives and we look back on what we've done. That really is the grain harvest. So be ready to put good things out there and be aware that this is a new cycle. Now really, we are actually going into the dying part of the year, but human ingenuity, as I was saying, has overcome that, and we can still produce grain at other times of the year. It's only in the darkest times of winter that nothing grows at all. So we should give thanks for that. And that human ingenuity, it's sort of gone the wrong way, hasn't it? We've got sort of GMO crops and all kinds of manipulations of nature going on, and we see the results coming back in bad, crazy weather, huge natural disasters, that kind of thing. Not the most edifying prospect, not the best of things to happen, but that is what human beings do with it. And the journey of humanity on this planet is to come to terms with that, use our own ingenuity, but without damaging everything else. And so although this is a time of things beginning to die off, it's also a time of actually being able to enjoy the fruits of the harvest and to enjoy the fruits of the labour that went into that harvest, because, in the farming analogy, it's time for a rest. And this has been a very intense year. Several planets are retrograde at the moment, and Mercury is still very much retrograde. So it's not the most straightforward of time. It's not the easiest of times to be working out exactly what's going on. And the moon enters Aries today, so that is actually the beginning of a new cycle, and that shows that even though we're in a waning cycle of the moon, we're in this dying cycle of nature at the moment, which is the only way to get the rebirth. It's important important to remember that. It's all actually 100% part of the cycle. But astrology and the moon phases are starting a new cycle now with the moon in Aries. That's going to be 11:54 a.m. here in UK today, 8 hours behind that on the Pacific coast of the States and Canada, and 5 hours behind that on the eastern coast, Eastern Daylight Time. If it's daylight with you, which it won't be when I'm recording this, but hopefully you get a good night's sleep and it will be daytime when you're watching it. Under an Aries moon, people can be quite impetuous, basically. There's a lot of energy behind wanting to get out there and get things done. It's almost as powerful as the Mars moon, it's certainly in the early stages of it with that. But really, it's about being sure, knowing the shot. You know, Aries is the sign of the ram, and rams and goats generally are very, very sure. Sorry, Capricorn is the goat, Aries is the ram. But rams generally are very sure-footed and they want to bang forward and get what they want. They don't want to take any nonsense. Well, astrology plays into the human world and we are that bit more complicated thinkers than that. But really just be aware that some may be critical of you and you actually might find yourself being a bit more critical of other people than is really helpful. Not just people, nature, the world around you, everything. It's a happier time if we look for the positives, basically. That's what I want to say. And as long as we keep on looking up, things are going to be good. Not just under an Aries moon, not just at Lammas, but the rest of the time as well. Because it's all about looking up and looking forward. And as we go into this dying cycle, just be aware of what's coming around. When we are small children, a year seems to take a long, long time. We'd get a 6-week holiday from school every summer. And that would just, at the beginning of that 6 weeks, it was as if we just never had to go to school again. Now, as I've got older, and I know that from talking to friends that as we all get older, things seem to speed up. Someone once said we are speeding up for eternity, and that's why these things happen. But as things speed up, the cycle comes around a lot more quickly. That's what I want to say. Things seem to get colder and wetter, and then it's Christmas before you know it. Let's not think about that yet. But at the end of Christmas night every year, when I've cooked everyone's food and we've all eaten ourselves silly and probably had a bit too much to drink and the kids have gone to bed, I come up here and I sit in my room and I go over things on the internet to do with seeds and planting and growing, and I start making my plans for the garden next year. It never seems like 5 minutes to me these days. So if you're a younger person and these cycles seem to go on forever, don't worry about it, all things will pass. If you're an older person, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, well, thanks very much for watching. I hope this harvest is a fruitful one for you, whether that's out in nature or in your own life, because all these spiritual practices we do and involve ourselves with will eventually bear fruit in our lives. You know, you get out what you put in, but that fruit will come if you've been working on it. Okay, have a great day. I will see you again very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.